progressing your players, having them make strides this year. They have a lot of young receivers. You mentioned earlier Laurent Robinson. Jacksonville is certainly one of those sleeper teams that could, win some big games late in the year and possibly take down a playoff contending team.
Yeah, and real quick, I just want to throw it out there. Anyone who has our listing on Facebook, I just threw up a poll. I want to know what you guys think. Who will have the better year? Is it going to be Blaine Gabbert with the Jaguars or Ryan Tannehill with the Dolphins? I just put the poll up. I'd really be interested to see how you guys vote on there on who's going to have the better year. So I'm very excited to see what you guys think on that one.
All right, NFL Goal Line is on Facebook, ladies and gentlemen. Please type in NFL Goal Line with Nick and Phil if you haven't already been a member of the Facebook show. And that's our very first poll, Phil. And right now we have a 1-0 lead for Ryan Tannehill of the Dolphins. We're looking forward to what you guys think. And at the end of the show, we'll let you know who the winner is and if Jacksonville has any sort of a chance of being one of those sleeper teams. So we'll be taking a quick timeout, just a 30-second break. And when we return, we'll be talking underachieving wide receivers and total NFL players in the National Football League and also making our NFL predictions. We have our first game Wednesday night, Cowboys and the Giants. Nick and Phil on NFL Goal Line on Spreaker.com will return after this quick timeout. Welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen. This is the NFL Goal Line with Nick Rice and Phil Nunziata. We've been talking MJD football and if his holdout will infect the Jaguars this next year, and also heading over to Miami. How will the Dolphins play at overall with all their wide receiver concerns? We'll take a poll. It's on Facebook right now. Who will have the better year, Ryan Tannehill of the Dolphins or Blaine Gabbert of the Jaguars? But Phil, we have some news heading over in Philadelphia. What do you have for us, Phil?
Well, for those Eagles fans that may already know, Brian Westbrook, former running back of the Eagles, has retired after a brief stint with the San Francisco 49ers 2 years ago, but is officially retired and signed his one-day contract with the Philadelphia Eagles to retire as an Eagle. Growing up, I idolized this guy. He was, the main running back through our Super Bowl run in 2004. And here's a guy, playmaker at several different positions. Running back, made an impact in the passing game. Punt, kick return for a few years, there was no better. Here's a guy, even in college, a Division II school of Villanova, holds the NCAA record for most all-purpose yards by any player. His success didn't stop there in the NFL. Over 6,000 yards, in his career of about 9 to 10 years. 41 rushing touchdowns, 30 receiving touchdowns, on his way to 2 Pro Bowls, a third-round selection of the Eagles. And I just wanted to take the time to say thank you, Brian Westbrook, for all that you've done for Philadelphia, and I'm glad you retired as an Eagle.
And Brian Westbrook, I would have to add on to that, Phil. Who could not be a fan of this guy? He was one of those guys that, he was obviously a threat in the receiving game and, just running the football. And for Brian Westbrook and the Eagles, it's nice to see that he finally retires in the city of Philadelphia. And Brian Westbrook, one of those guys will head over to the opposite side of this topic in just a few moments, but he was one of those overachieving guys that really was about the team more than about himself. You can't say that about too many guys in the NFL nowadays. It's obviously a shame, but Brian Westbrook, he was the marquee running back in that 04 run that they had to the Super Bowl. I was a big fan of Brian Westbrook. I don't know who really couldn't. And outside of LT in this new era, it's been Brian Westbrook. He was the lead running back in rushing and receiving, and obviously just a huge fan of Brian Westbrook. I'm sure you'd agree.
Yeah, anyone who's an Eagles fan, has been, will be, they will have a number 36 hanging up in their closet. I know I do. I know most Eagles fans that I know do also. Here's a guy, off the field, slightly different. I know plenty of people that he might not have been the nicest guy to be around, didn't exactly talk to the fans as much as other players, but when it came to on the field, he was all business, a selfless player. We used to have this saying with Brian Westbrook, he would, treat kick returns like bad checks because he would just bring them back. and he's just playmaker all over the field. I'm really glad to see him retire as an Eagle. He will be going into the Eagles Hall of Fame this year. I think the first meeting against the Giants, he'll be represented at halftime, which I'll be very happy to see. But just a guy, a third-round selection from a Division II school, turned out to be one of the most popular, most loved, and most productive players in the Eagles' history.
And he was also one of the best shortest players. I just want to add that, Phil, in the entire NFL. A tremendous running back, and his marquee moment, believe it or not, was not even when he had any sort of run or any sort of catch and run after it. He led that game-winning drive, I believe, against the Giants, if I'm sure, where the Eagles just have a long play, and then Brian Westbrook helps, one of the guys that are falling on the ground after the catch. He helps bring them up where they can spike the ball and run another play. That just kind of is the staple of Brian Westbrook through his whole career. It wasn't about me. It was about the team when it was all said and done. And obviously, you can't be any less than, excited for this guy to finally retire as an Eagle and have a long career. Unfortunately, not winning a Super Bowl, but I mean, a lot of great guys have not won the big game. So for Westbrook to retire as an Eagle is just, one of those honors that not many NFL players really have. It's exciting to see that he plays as an Eagle and always will be an Eagle.
Yeah, I think, and I just put this on Facebook. Go ahead and send us in if you have your favorite Brian Westbrook moment. I'd be interested to hear those, and I might read a few of them out. But I just want to say mine real quick. A couple years back, I believe it was 2009 or 2010, the Dallas Cowboys 13-3 that year, number one seed. The Eagles play them. They're out of the playoffs. They don't have a lot to play for. Just the pride of beating Dallas, which any Eagles fan will tell you is almost worth not being in the playoffs so you can beat Dallas. Late in the game, the score is 10-6. Brian Westbrook breaks off a big run, and I think this symbolizes him as a player. He kneels at the 1-yard line when he could have easily scored a touchdown, so the Eagles could run off the clock and not give the Cowboys a chance to get the ball back and win the game. So here's a guy that sacrificed personal glory, sacrificed his stats of getting that touchdown to kneel on the 1-yard line and win the game. And I think that'll always symbolize Brian Westbrook for me.
And Brian Westbrook, one of those selfless players, and that's another marquee moment. We have it on Facebook. What is your most memorable moment of running back Brian Westbrook? Always will be an Eagle and now retires in the city of Philadelphia. One of those selfless, overachieving guys that always got it done in the city of Philadelphia. Now let's go over to the opposite spectrum. It's very interesting. It'll be one of those things, probably Phil will post it on Facebook as well. We have very interactive Facebook page at the moment. But right now, we'll be heading over to this topic. Now, who is the most underachieving player in the entire NFL? With guys just the guy that sparks out right now is Terrell Owens. But as of today, the most underachieving player in the entire NFL, one of those guys that's all about me. Possibly one of those guys, all I want is money, and all I want is everything off the field that I can get. Now let's turn it over to one of the leaders of national sports, Cameron Sadeghi. So we'll have his very first input on this subject of the most underachieving player, Cameron, in the entire NFL. What do you think?
It's got to be Matt Leinart. I think that even though he's not on the limelight like he used to, but I've heard stories where he's throwing parties at Las Vegas, partying at night, not preparing, he's not ready for the spotlight. And he's in Oakland, he's a backup, and he's still struggling to become a starter. I think he has okay talent. I think he could be a good backup, but he shoots himself in the foot in games. I mean, even the preseason, he'll throw an interception. He'll make a few mistakes here and there. He won't find the right guy. Matt Leinart is the prime example of what you're not supposed to be as a high draft pick in the NFL draft. And it's so disappointing to see, because you see all these, NFL analysts, you see Mel Kiper yelling and screaming with Todd McShay and Mike Mayock breaking it down about how this guy's not going to become a bust, or this guy's going to be the next Joe Montana, or this guy's going to be the next Tom Brady. But guess what? You shouldn't get any respect until you hit that football field. So many guys are hyped up. Look at Ryan. I could go with Ryan Leaf, Achilles Smith, all these guys, Jamarcus Russell. I mean, we don't even know about Andrew Luck yet. Have you played a season yet? No. So we don't know about Luck yet, or RG3. So I have to go with Matt Leinart here. I think that's the most underachieving player in the NFL today.
Well, that's definitely a very good point. Here's a guy, Heisman Trophy winner at USC, nearly winning the national championship. If it wasn't for Vince Young and the Texas Longhorns. Quick minute here. Anyone who has not seen that game, if you're a fan of football, look it up. It's on ESPN Classic all the time. That national championship game, one of the best football games ever. And I can definitely agree on why you would say that. Here's a guy, he's never really, looked up to the expectations. At the time he was with the Arizona Cardinals, they were 8-8 team. The next year, they decided to stick Kurt Warner in there, and they go to the Super Bowl. So here's a team that a Super Bowl caliber team played 8-8 with Matt Leinart. So here's a guy, and as you said, his off the field antics are just unacceptable for an NFL player. That's a great pick. I could definitely agree with you there.
And actually, I think we'll round it out with just our Phil and Nick's predictions on the most underachieving player. And obviously, Matt Leinart, you want to just go to the big position. I mean, for a guy in plays so much spotlight, he completely underachieved. And Cameron, just real quick, for Matt Leinart, if it isn't for Leinart, do you see one of those, another guy, I know it's spreading you a little thin here right off the bat, but another guy that you think today is the most underachieving player in the NFL?
I think I'm going to have to go with Mark Sanchez. And I know that's, the big position, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to, think of something on the fly here. Sanchez, to me, I saw a little bit too much hype coming into the draft. I felt too many people were hyping him up, saying he's great, he's going to be, he's the great, next West Coast star, he's this, he's that. But let me remind you, at USC, he had some great weapons. He had a superb defense, great offensive weapons, great. I think he had Dwayne Jarrett, if I believe, or I forgot his name, but he was a great receiver there. He's just a game manager, to be honest. I know being a game manager is not a small thing, but you could see he makes some critical mistakes. He doesn't seem to have the preparation that I would like, especially with his draft pick status. And leadership comes into question, and I know I'm not supposed to say that because I'm not next to the guy or I don't know what he's like in the locker room. But to me, he doesn't come off of startling when it comes on the football field. I think that's one of the other guys today in the starting position that is really underachieving.
Yeah, that's another great point. I think the big thing with Mark Sanchez, and if you haven't noticed with both of your selections, there's been a pattern here. I think a lot of it has to do with being a USC quarterback, and just because you play there and you have success, because you're surrounded by other All-American talent, it can make you look better than you are. And here's a guy, when he went to the Jets initially, it was the same situation. He, had a lot of great talent about him, good defense, great running game, and he was able to get to 2 conference championships. And people were saying, it's because of Mark Sanchez. I think he did just enough to get them there. And definitely, between college and his first couple years in the NFL, he's definitely been overhyped, and him personally has underachieved.
And by the way, I think I think teams should be really looking on the late rounds of the NFL draft. I know you might say, oh, come on, there's only one Tom Brady out of a million, but there's Shannon Sharp. I mean, I know this is not in the draft, but Antonio Gates was undrafted. So some of these teams who take these late rounds not seriously, you look at the New England Patriots. You look at teams like New England, Baltimore. Those teams, you always wonder why are they in the premier class. Is because they always find the guys that will fit their system and that will be able to maximize their talent completely, low maintenance. So if you can find guys like that, those are huge. People don't take it seriously. People think, oh, come on, Cameron, really, the late rounds. But you can find a diamond in the rough when it comes to the late rounds. So I totally agree with all you guys.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth. The most important thing is to find that diamond in the rough, and every round of the draft, matters. I think it was on a fantasy football commercial, but it says